Welcome everyone to this month's Midlife and Thriving newsletter. And it's all about helping midlife women come back to what I perceive as the most important relationship of their lives, the one with themselves. Why? Because through the art of self-care, ensuring that they are thriving, they are more able or they are enabled to take their brilliance out into the world. I mean, how good is that? Take the brilliance out into the world with presence, with clarity, and with joy, role modeling for the generations to come. I am blessed to have with me this month Anne Leatherland, who is a coach and voice expert serving businesswomen and female leaders. Anne, so brilliant to have you with me.
It's great to be here, Yvonne. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's wonderful.
Oh, so good. And, we're really focusing this month on the voice. And this has come up quite a bit for me recently, just thinking about how we use our voices. Are we using our voices? And from a self-care perspective, that if we're not using our voices, how are we asking for what we need? Are we
Mm,
asking for what we need? And all of those wonderful things. And so it was great to find you. I mean, I've been following you for some time now, Anne, and so it's great to have somebody who's an expert in voice and really kind of ask you some questions. Let's just see where we go.
absolutely. I style myself like that, by the way, because I'm a life coach now as well as a voice teacher. And I've got 30 odd years experience in voice and 5 or 6 years coming up now in life coaching. And I've aimed to put those two things together to provide me with a new framework. I think in some ways I always was coaching. If I go back
Yes.
years ago, it's just I wasn't trained to do it. And that's because the voice, as you will know, is so inextricably linked with who we are as people. And even more so as we get to this stage of our lives. We talk about 40 plus, and all of a sudden we find that maybe we're not so sure about how to get our voices out anymore. Or maybe
Yeah,
we feel overlooked, or maybe we suddenly feel invisible. So it's an
absolutely.
interesting thing.
Absolutely. And I think for some women, certainly through my coaching, is they've been shut down so many times, they've just learned to shut down. So they've learned not to speak up, not to ask
Yes.
for what they need. So yeah, there's a lot there. So this work that you're doing is brilliant. It's very timely because I think midlife, with that focus on midlife women, is on the rise and making sure that we are standing up and asking for what we need when we need it, not after we've been burnt out and feeling exhausted. So I'm going to start with this first question because many women kind of grow up learning to be quiet
Mm,
um, and not to stand out, actually,
mm.
to learn to be a good girl and be quiet. And I'm wondering, how does that history influence vocal well-being in midlife? And how can women reconnect with their authentic voice?
I think that's a very good question, and it very much does affect women. I think at all points in their lives, but especially as we approach midlife. And
Mm,
I'm thinking of midlife as a broad thing, so you could even say 40 plus here. I'm not just talking about menopausal age, although it can be as well, of course.
yes.
And many of us were expected to be quiet and to be nice in a way that the boys weren't. And I think this is changing a bit with the modern generation. I do hope so, but I say that and I hear people talking about social media and they're just following how they're expected to look, how they're expected to act, what they're expected to do. But if we look back in time, there is that conditioning of not speaking up, not saying what you want. And I'm smiling here because I'm thinking of my mum, God rest her. She died a few years ago now. But she would always say, "Would anyone like the heating on?" Or would anyone like XYZ? And in the end, we'd be going, "No, I'm fine." And then we'd say, "Mum, are you cold? Would you like the heating on?" Because she didn't feel able to say, "Yes, I'd like the heating on. Shall we warm things up a bit?" She would always
Mm.
couch it as a question to everybody else. And I think that that's the thing. And then if we put that into a business context, we've got this long running thing of what Marianne Seagard has called the authority gap, where
Mm.
women's voices are not perceived and heard in the same way as men's voices at all. And so we're treated accordingly. So we grow up with all of that, and some of it's cultural, some of it's just habit, the way things have always been. And it's harder for some people coming from different cultures than others.
Yes.
Other people I've worked it with have told me stories about when they were young. Their mother was, for instance, a hairdresser, and they were expected to sit under the counter when they were small and not make any noise.
Wow.
I don't know whether that's a gender thing or whether that child just happened to be female, but things like that happen to us all through our lives. And there is this expectation that boys will be more boisterous and that men can be strong and stand out and speak up. But if we do that, we're confrontational.
Yes.
And so we don't want to be that confrontational person. And it's a label that's put on us for being assertive. So, just to answer your question, that conditioning, I fear, becomes embodied. So, you end up with things like tight jaw, from holding back from saying things all round here, TMJ region, shallow breathing, because the adrenaline's up and you're waiting to make your contribution. Let's just say it's a conversation or a meeting, but you can't quite get it out
Yes.
because you're afraid that somebody will decide that you shouldn't have said that thing and you'll be speaking out of place. And therefore you have reduced vocal presence. If you have reduced vocal presence, then you're not honouring yourself as a person. You're not getting out there with your values and your ideas and your beliefs in the way that you want to. And so the nervous system, which has stored those early messages, kicks off and makes a vicious circle. The adrenaline rises, we get cortisol, the stress hormone. Instead of it dying down, it just comes back every time we're in that situation. And I think, therefore, by the time we get to midlife, if something isn't done where we're allowed to speak up and express who we are, then it exposes a gap, if you like,
Yeah.
between our inner wisdom and experience and capability and the way our voice comes out and is perceived by others.
Yeah.
And so I am trying to get it so that reconnection starts with safety in the body,
Yes.
in the body, in the mind, in ourselves. And then an authentic voice emerges when the body, the nervous system, and the self trust that we have work together.
Yeah. Oh, that is so beautifully put, and all of that resonated deeply with me because, a lot of my work is around the nervous system, and actually giving ourselves permission to be still and silent sometimes so that we can even feel and hear what that inner voice is trying to say to us and what our body is saying to us. And I loved when you talked about, when we're holding that tension and we don't know it. So I think this is the important bit, is
Mm.
we've been holding it for so long that we don't probably even notice it.
No,
And
it's a pattern.
yeah, absolutely. And that tightness in the jaw, in the throat, the discomfort from, absolutely having something to say, but being fearful of how it will land.
And you can
And
feel it here, can't you? It's
yes,
physical. And people will
yes,
sometimes say it feels like I've got a lump in my throat or like my voice is stuck and it just won't come out. So that this is where the physical skill comes in, because if you know some strategies to break that cycle, it then has a knock-on effect on your nervous system, which then allows things to fit together. It's interesting how the nervous system and the physical control of the voice can affect each other. So if you're very
yes.
nervous, it can affect your voice, or if you're speaking negatively to yourself all the time, or
Yeah.
your body is just responding to these old messages of staying quiet. On the other hand, if you know how to open your vocal tract, set yourself up so that the breath works with your voice and calm it right down, even though you're not feeling it, eventually the nervous system gets the message and goes, oh, okay. I'm not talking about the extremes of massive anxiety here, but just the
Oh,
usual butterflies that we would
yes.
get. because some things we can't control when the nervous system has gone completely into overdrive, and that needs professional clinical help usually. So I'm on
Absolutely.
about just most of us here who
Yes.
get a bit stuck, but nevertheless it's powerful.
Yeah, definitely. And even just noticing that for yourself is something that for me, the awareness piece is
Mm,
thinking, gosh, oh, okay, maybe that's why I've been struggling to say the things
yes.
that I've truly wanted to say. It is like a little wake up alert. So I love that, Anne. I love that. Thank you so much. Now, you also speak about voice intuition as a way of working with voice. How would you describe this approach and how does it go beyond traditional vocal training?
Okay. Well, my business has been called Vocal Intuition for quite a long time. And by intuition here, it works two ways, doesn't it? Because it could be vocal in tuition, I'm a tutor, or it can be vocal intuition, which I've more grown into.
Mm,
Usually, we think of intuitive things as just being a gut reaction, or some people think of it as being a bit woo woo. So, I want to talk about intuition as being the way we respond when everything is balanced and everything is working for us and we're really in touch with ourselves.
yes.
So then when we speak, everything fits together intuitively rather than us having to think of things and change them as we go along and be like, oh, I'm too loud, oh, I'm too soft, oh, people don't like my voice, or whatever it is. You can make those flight corrections on autopilot, literally, because you intuitively know how to speak to engage people or just to get your message out there as clearly as you want to. So that's what I mean by vocal intuition. And I've worked hard over the past few years to make this a very integrated approach, especially
Yeah,
since I trained in life coaching. It suddenly went ping, I
yeah,
understand now. People need to understand themselves and regulate themselves or their own nervous systems to some degree before they can apply that vocal skill, that technical
mm,
training, and everything fits together. So, for instance, I work on three pillars now. I talk about three voices: the physical
mm,
voice, which we can
yes.
all hear, the voice in the head, or the inner critic,
Hmm.
or the inner chimp, if you've ever read that book. That's a
I
brilliant
have.
book. Okay, sometimes we call it chimpy when I'm working with people, but that voice in the head, the one that's warning us 1,200 times more a day than it is giving us positive feedback. That's how big the
Yeah.
difference is. So, therefore, we need to know which of its messages are applicable and genuine and which ones we can just say, thank you, voice in the head, thank you, Chimpy or Fred or whatever you want to call it, but I'm okay, but thanks for warning me.
Mm,
Because if we listen to it all the time, then we're down the slope to being very nervous and very worried and, if you like, stage fright and all of that, or anxiety in its worst form.
yeah.
So that's the voice in the head. It can also help us. It can also help us to moderate our own sort of passionate approach. If we get carried away with something, the voice in the
Mm,
head will be going, rein it back a bit. This audience needs something a bit different. But we have to make friends with it and understand it, and when it's
definitely.
okay to ignore it and when it's okay to take it seriously. Then the third voice is the inner voice, what I call the true inner voice of the self. The person who is right at the centre of us on the inside. And if we could, we'd get that voice out in the physical voice. And so if you look at the overlaps between all of these, it's about getting the physical voice out, telling the message from the true inner voice without the voice in the head getting in the way. But we do need an integration of all three of those. So, for instance, if we've got our physical voice working and we're very skilled and we've learned some technique, how to change the tone, how to change the resonance, how to change the amount of air that comes through so you sound a bit Radio 3, you know,
Yeah.
then that's one thing. But we've got the voice that comes out, we're mind balancing it, but without the inner self, it can sound inauthentic. On the other hand, we can have an overlap between our mind balance and ourself, and that's great because we've got the voice in the head sorted out, we've got our inner message sorted out. But we might be in a room where we don't know how to handle the acoustic, or we might have a microphone, or we might be on a video that we're not used to, or we might be on a telephone, and we might not have the vocal skill to deal with our message in that situation. So that's the physical part missing. On the other hand, if we have an overlap between, I suppose, that physical part and the person we are, we've got the passion, we've got the message. We're not listening at all to the voice in the head. So we can very quickly go down the tracks. Uh, it's like a cart being out of control. So we need that mind balance part to say, hey, but you need to do this according to the people in front of you. So we can come across as confident, but we're not
Yeah.
necessarily consistent because we're just
Yes.
going with the emotion of it all the time.
Yeah, I hear that. That's great. I love that overlap, those three circles, and understanding that they each have a role, because that's the bit. It's not you just need to be all inner voice and nothing else, or you need to be all the physical. It's that all of those three parts have a role to play.
They all have a role to play. The voice and the mind balance, we've got those. Without the self, we're inauthentic.
Yes.
Then we've got the mind balance and the self. Without the voice, we're a bit flat because we don't know how to play the instrument. And then if we've got the self and the voice, then we've got the outer confidence, but we can run away with our message. We haven't got the ability to adapt to other situations. We're not consistent.
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense. But
Yeah.
it recognizes the voice as an expression of the whole person
Yes, indeed.
rather than just something we do. We talk about the voice as I just did, but actually it's us, it's our voice, it's who we are. We can't just pick it up or put it over there like a flute or some other instrument. So once we've got those three things working, it helps us to build grounded authority rather than performance, rather than imagining we are, pretending that we are. Act as if can be quite powerful, but act as
Mm.
is can be even more powerful. We all have to do a
Oh,
bit
definitely.
of act as if until we've got it, I think, but that creates a lasting change because body and beliefs are included together. And
Yes.
the goal is a voice that matches our capability, as I was saying before.
Yeah. And I think that act as if, is part of the training, if you like, towards, the real gold. Act as is, being able to be your true whole self. And it is a journey. It takes time. It's not, it's not something that just happens overnight. And this work that you do, it really does give that foundational piece that will just help women, I'm saying women because that's who we're focused on, really come into their own.
Mm.
And for me, there's a lot of trust building in that, like trusting self.
There is, and there's a lot of looking into places that perhaps we haven't looked before without overriding the boundary and going into psychology work, which I'm not qualified to do. I'm a coach. So my
Mm,
idea is to hold the space and to show people the way to look at these areas and how they fit together and to give them exercises that help that. So it's a facilitation from that point of view, and it's a training from the voice skill point of view, if you
yeah,
see what I mean, because it's important. I'm not a psychotherapist, and it's important to know the boundaries of that when we're working. And if anyone needs deeper help than I can offer in that department, then I'll refer them on. I think that's
yeah,
vital that we understand
absolutely.
that as coaches.
Definitely. Fantastic. So, a big part of vocal well-being is asking for what we need
Hmm.
without guilt, and without waiting for permission, which is something that I
Oh,
see
yeah. I mean,
we do
sometimes we
a
don't
lot.
even give ourselves permission to breathe fully.
Absolutely.
We don't even take a
Absolutely.
deep enough breath, let alone speak.
Exactly.
Oh, but permission to take up space. I mean, it's one of the first things I looked at in my podcast, which is called Be Truly Heard. But owning the space, making friends with the space, saying, I deserve to be here. This room is for me.
Yes.
And that's a very important thing that we can then embody and say, well, how do I then take up that space? And it's those sorts of ideas that we work with,
Yeah.
as well as how do we then control that voice if it is getting a little bit wobbly and out of control? What do we do, you know?
Exactly. I think you made, because I was going to go on just to say, what practical steps can midlife women take to begin expressing needs and boundaries more confidently and kindly, I have to say.
Well, I would say one of the first things is actually to own the space that you're in.
Yeah.
And I did quite a big presentation for the British Voice Association. I was in the final lineup for something called the Van Lawrence Award for vocal research.
Mm.
And I'd done this piece, and I knew that all the people who I'd referenced in this paper would be in the audience and would be asking me questions in a Viva Voce thing afterwards. And I was so frightened I didn't eat for a week. But I got over it when a colleague of mine said, go around the room, touch the walls, and say, this is a kind space. This space welcomes me. I can show up in this space. And that sounds a bit woo woo, but actually, all we're doing is affirming ourselves. And what we tell our brain tells our body. And if our body is safe, the nervous system doesn't kick off. So therefore, we're in a much better place to make the best of our voice from the outset. And it really worked for me. So obviously, I've run with that in the podcast and in this framework that I've put together. So the first thing is
Mm.
give yourself permission to be there. And that is hard if you're used to feeling less than and you're used to shrinking.
Mm.
So I often say to people, write something on a piece of card, something that you look at and you say to yourself, an affirmation that you say to yourself every day, but you take that inside. You don't just say it blindly, you embody it and you believe it and you visualize it. So
Mm.
something like, I have worthwhile ideas and I am worth being heard. Or whatever you want to say in terms of public speaking, it might be, I'm a good speaker and people are engaged by what I say. So you make it positive and you make it in the now, not like one day I will be better. That's more of a reframing. But this is a
Yeah.
positive affirmation. We take what skills we've got and we make them as positive as we can.
Yes.
And the repetition and the embodiment of that by just concentrating and taking that in with deep breaths, which I teach how to get the deep breaths and let go of the shallow thing,
Yes.
actually gives the brain and the nervous system a different message. It helps us to self regulate and it gets us out of what's known as a sympathetic nervous system response and into the parasympathetic of the rest and digest. Now, a lot of this is due to the way, excuse me, a lot of this is due to the way that the vagus nerve runs and works in the body. Now,
Mm.
I'm not a vagal nerve expert. I've read all about it. Lots of people are bandying it about on the internet. So just be careful when you're hearing about it, but it is part of our nervous system regulation. So I
Yeah.
won't go off down a rabbit hole into that vagal pathway thing, although I'm
Mm.
aware that that's part of it. So then you can get your breath connected with your voice. And this is something I do for everybody.
Mm.
And if we both just sit here now, People, if they see me elsewhere, will be thinking, oh, is she doing this one again? Yes, I am, because this is the fundamental, right? And it's not good enough to say, well, I breathe every day. We all breathe in a way that's affected by our tensions and our life pressures and everything. Let go. We're going back to toddler state when we sat up with a really lovely alignment. The head and the neck could move smoothly like this. And we're just going to get the air out first, because the best way to get a breath in is to get the air out.
Yes.
So we're going to just squeeze the lower tummy slightly, right down there in the Calvin Kleins, and go PSH like a leaky beach ball. So tummy comes in, sound comes out. Psh, right to the end of the breath. And then let go. More breath comes in and your tummy bounces back. And I could see that you did that correctly there, Yvonne, because I could see your sides of your arms just moving out slightly, showing that the rib cage had just expanded, and you hadn't taken all that breath up here going. So if you're trying this, folks, and you're seeing this, that's reverse breathing. That's sipping upwards, making yourself smaller, and then blowing out. And I know why this happens. It's because all through our lives, and this is women as well, people have said, breathe in, you're going through a narrow space. We're not breathing
Yes.
in, we're pulling the abdominal wall in. That's different. When we breathe in, we get bigger. And so I do work like that. So get a good deep breath. And then connect that with your voice. So after you've done a bit of beach ball breathing, as I call it, you then replace psh with a V or a Z. So it would go like this. You get your nice low breath. Notice no shoulders or anything all around the middle, and then and let go. New deep breath. And my tummy's moving in and up all the time.
Yeah.
Now it takes a bit more than just the time we've got here, because I know that some people will be trying to do that in reverse. And they'll
Yes.
find that breathing pattern hard because it's the way that they've held themselves safe for so many
Absolutely.
years, but my work unravels that in quite some detail.
Yeah.
And if we use that, then we get a better connection with the voice. If I do and then engage that with my voice, so I'm pulling slightly in and up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My voice wakes up.
Yeah.
I said the last sentence on low pressure air because I wanted you to see the difference when I
See the difference.
engaged. But so
Yes.
many people talk on this where they're running out of breath and they keep going and they keep going, and then it's and then they go
Yeah.
on to the next thing.
Absolutely.
Well, actually, it's not just breathing, Yvonne. It's using the breath in tandem with your vocal cords, which are doing this, vibrating all the time and setting up a resistance. We're getting a bit sciencey now, but essentially, I can breathe in and out all day,
Yes.
but it won't help me speak unless I actually coordinate what I'm doing here with that breath. And that's what I teach in the body part, as well as other things like intelligibility and projection.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. I think because there's so much to it. And I think for some people, certainly for some of the women that I work with, even just being able to recognize how their breathing patterns have not been serving them
Yes.
is huge.
It's massive. There's a lot of awareness building in this because there's a
Yes.
big overlap, as you know, between the breath and the nervous system. If I suddenly get you and the listeners to breathe very quickly and shallowly, if you all suddenly start going, that sounds weird on the mic, doesn't it? But that will make you feel a little bit ungrounded. And if you keep
Yeah.
doing it, which I won't make you do because people can faint, it makes you a bit anxious. Why? Because the physical body has said to the nervous system, oh, you're doing something which is linked to anxiety. I'd better be anxious.
Mm.
Right? You give the nervous system a nice deep breath, lots of energy, sorry, lots of oxygen and energy. You go, well, it's potential energy to be used. It goes, oh, you're okay. Everything calms. The adrenaline and its chemical products break down in your system, and you're not in this circle of stress, stress, stress all the time. And so the
Yeah,
nervous system gets a different message. You could do it the other
absolutely.
way. You can say, with the mind balance to the nervous system, this is back to Chimpy and the voice in the head. You can say, actually, everything's okay. I'm feeling unsettled. So let's see if we can sort this out because everything's actually all right. And giving you permission to calm down, then suddenly you take a deep breath. And suddenly you feel calmer. And I'll just put a little addendum on this that obviously, if you're very, very, very frightened or you have some kind of deep issue, this won't necessarily be the case. If fight and flight goes too far, we can't
Yes.
always override it. But I'm just talking normal everyday stuff really here. And so it's really, yes, regulate yourself before speaking. Slow exhale, nice inhale. Do it on the voice or zzz. Ground yourself, get your feet flat on the floor. And then start with a real internal clarity about how you want to show up. What sort of energy do I want to show up in? I want to sound friendly, but as if I have authority in my subject, and happy about what I'm doing. And so everybody else is confident in me. And notice I didn't say I want to sound confident. You will sound confident if you do these other things. Your confidence is in you. We're just releasing it. It's not something we get from the outside. It's something dynamic that's already in us.
Mm.
And so then I take that energy up through my body, engage and speak.
That's wonderful. And I'm somebody who has worked in like health and fitness for over 30 years. So for me, that whole thing about understanding your physicality,
Mm.
which always blows my mind that we don't actually spend an awful lot of time teaching
No,
ourselves about.
no, we
We live in
don't.
this body, but we don't really talk about it until, there's an issue, there's a
That
problem.
That's so true. And I think it's because we take it for granted that we're able to do things. And it's only when they're taken away that we suddenly go, oh, that was a more elegant thing than I remembered. I broke my arm a couple of years ago, and all of a sudden I couldn't move it. I couldn't do things with it. I couldn't play the piano. I couldn't do X, Y, Z. It was hard to have a shower, that sort of thing. I thought, oh, yes, you don't notice it till it's gone, do you? And it's the same with voices. With the actual physical voice, people go, oh, it's okay, I can speak. I feel relatively confident when I speak. It's okay. But I think, why wait until it's not okay to do something about it? Why not
Mm.
work on it so you can literally play that instrument to help you and your nervous system and the person that you are and get it all working together so that you really communicate?
I mean, this has been fascinating, Anne, and I'm even myself realizing just how important this whole connection between our nervous system and the voice is. I kind of knew that it was important, but actually, you've really highlighted some key things. And so I'm wondering for those women who have to use their voice daily, be it professionally or personally, either case, what would be like the first or the most helpful practice that they could start to embody?
Okay, this is really important in terms of just being able to speak firmly but kindly, as we were talking about earlier. And that's to be secure in your own skin and to be sure of your own intent. So, what's our intent energetically? Our intent is to show up in our own truth, in our own integrity, and then to use our energy to express that in a way that is kind and people can engage with. Now, I know lots of people in the world don't do that. We've already talked about the people who are deemed as strong, who just shout their heads off. But we as women can do that, and we're showing up and, as I said earlier, honouring ourselves and our own integrity. So I would say let's do a morning reset. So every morning, no matter what speaking we're going to be doing, let's plant our feet firmly on the ground. Check that alignment. Notice any tension and pause. So swallow and notice any tightness here, and then just take a really deep breath, but make it as silent as you can. So silently, through the mouth even. If it's silent, then you're not holding that sort of tension in your throat. Keep that feeling of freedom and then speak to yourself positively. I'm going to have a great day today. I'm going to speak well today. I'm going to say what I think today in an assertive but kind way. And then on every breath, remind yourself. That's what I would do. And that combines a little bit of breathing work and security work, because opening the throat there stops the nervous system from thinking we're tensing up. And then
Yeah,
that allows us to connect with the voice really nicely.
beautiful. Love that. There you go. A little morning reset that we can all practice, that we can all use. And I think even if you feel comfortable with using your voice, that doesn't mean to say that you shouldn't give it the time to fine tune it, right? To do these little resets. And I think any opportunity to speak kindly to yourself is to be taken.
Oh, it's vital. We need to be kind but honest, and that way
Yeah.
we're in touch with that inner voice. But because we've sat with that and we've accepted who we are, where we are, then the nervous system calms down. And then if we learn vocal skills, we can apply them in a way that's working with the rest of our body and ourself.
Yeah, wonderful. Anne, thank you so much for joining me today. I am incredibly grateful. I think just sat here myself and all the things that you said and really thinking about voice and the importance of it, not just about using it, but actually just honoring it. This is this beautiful instrument that we have, as is our bodies, by the way. This beautiful instrument that we have that can help us to connect with self, connect with others, to bring our message out into the world, and to do all the brilliant things that we have been put here to do.
Absolutely. It is this bit, but it's also our lungs, our big body muscles, the whole of us, the feeling of energy in the body, and
Yes.
the intent that we have to say something is really important. Do a lot of work on that as well. That's all part of that self part. And
Yeah,
each of these
100%.
areas give each other little messages until eventually we get that integration, and all of a sudden we're showing up as who we
Yes,
are, and it's life enhancing as well as great for your business. So that's it.
absolutely. Absolutely. Excellent. Well, I sincerely hope those who have listened in have really enjoyed kind of hearing Anne's expertise in this and understanding that your voice, I just want to say your voice matters. So
Mm.
if you're not using your voice, it's time. If you are using your voice, you have the opportunity to have some tools that help you to utilize it in the best possible way and to take your message out strongly. And details are going to be somewhere in this newsletter. So feel free to reach out to her if you want some more information on her program and how she can serve and help you. And in the meantime, I'm just sending my love, best wishes, and blessings. Stay well.